Hi everyone, I am Carlo Naranjo, and for today's video, I will be presenting my chosen journal article, and the title is "The Control of Sleep and Wakefulness by Mesolimbic Dopamine Systems." Authors Yu Oishi and Michael Lazarus. Alright, so let's begin with our introduction. Sleep is a highly conserved behavior among animals that is vital to survival. For example, chronic sleep loss is linked to a wide range of deleterious physiological changes, including altered food intake, weight loss or gain, skin lesions, compromised thermoregulation, and even death. Understanding the circuit, cellular, and molecular basis by which the brain regulates sleep and wakefulness has long been a goal of sleep neuroscientists and neurologists. Currently, it is widely accepted that sleep is regulated by two processes, known as Process S and Process C. Process S is a homeostatic process by which sleep pressure increases during prolonged wakefulness and decreases during sleep. And process C is a circadian process that is controlled by circadian pacemaker that is located in the suprachiasmatic nucleus of the hypothalamus. Alright, so the VTA and wakefulness. So what is VTA? VTA stands for ventral tegmental area. It is a midbrain structure that is that is rich in dopamine neurons, and it is part of mesolimbic dopamine pathway and an important part of the reward system. So, in addition to a large population of dopamine neurons, it has 60% of population. The VT also contains GABAergic, which is it has 35%, and glutamatergic neurons. It has 2 to 3% of population. So the latter the latter of which may also include co-releasing dopamine neurons, although VTA dopamine neurons are known to play essential roles in emotional or motivational behaviors. A role for VTA in sleep-wake regulation was not seriously considered for many decades due to the lack of convincing evidence demonstrating the control of vigilant states by the VTA. And for example, non-specific electrolytic lesioning of the VTA in cats to examine the role of the VTA in sleep-wake regulation revealed that cats with reduced dopamine levels exhibited decreased behavioral arousal but no significant change in electrocortical waking. Alright, so how are wake promoting VTA dopamine neurons regulated by neurotransmitters? There are neurotransmitters that play a key role of VTA dopamine neurons, and these are glutamate, GABA, serotonin, and acetylcholine. So for glutamate plays a key role in regulating the activity of VTA dopamine neurons, as many reward-related brain areas send glutamatergic projections to the VTA. Alright, so for GABA, GABAergic pathways to VTA dopamine neurons are widespread. The GABAergic rostromedial tegmental nucleus, also known as the tail of the VTA, projects heavily to VTA dopamine neurons, and finally, VTA GABA neurons also make symmetric synapses into VTA dopamine neurons. So serotonin. The monoamine serotonin or serotonin modulates the activity of VTA dopamine neurons and thus may also regulate wakefulness via the VTA. And last, for acetylcholine, the VTA dopamine neurons receive inputs from cholinergic neurons in the peduncle lopontine tegmentum, where the neurons located in the upper pons in the brainstem. Cholinergic neurons are thought to play a major role in regulating behavioral arousal and cortical electroencephalographic activation. Right, and also acetylcholine release is greatest during waking and rapid eye movement sleep, and reduced during non-rapid eye movement sleep. Alright, so how are sleep promoting NAC neurons regulated by neuromodulators or neurotransmitters? Dopamine is a major neurotransmitter that regulates the activity of NAC neurons. It is a chemical release in the brain that makes us feel good. Having the right amount of dopamine is important both of our body and also our brain to our brain. So questions. What happens when a person has too much dopamine inside of the body? Having too much dopamine or too much dopamine concentrated in some parts of the brain and not enough in other parts, it is likely linked to being more competitive, aggressive, and having poor impulse control. And also, it can lead to conditions that include ADHD or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and also addiction and also gambling. So, second question is, how do you fix dopamine imbalance? Alright, so according to my research, getting enough sleep, exercising, listening to music, meditating, and spending time in the sun can also boost our dopamine levels in our body. Overall, a balanced diet and lifestyle can go a long way in increasing your body's natural production of dopamine, and also it helps our brain to function at its best. So last question is, can you get addicted to your own dopamine? And is dopamine addiction possible? Actually, it is not. It is not technically possible to get addicted to dopamine. It actually occurs naturally in our bodies, and we can't directly take it as a food or drug. However, it is completely possible to get addicted to any activity that increases our dopamine levels. All right, so um, NAC stands for nucleus accumbens, which means it is a major component of the ventral striatum, and it is a key structure in mediating emotional and motivation processing, modulating reward and pleasure processing, and also it serving a key limbic motor interface. So, what does NAC do to dopamine? In comparison to the control group, NAC supplementation significantly increased dopamine transporter binding in the caudate and putamen, key structures that regulate body movement. Dopamine transporter is a protein that works to recycle dopamine after its release in the brain. Alright, so since NAC raises dopamine levels, it may help. It may also help treat some mental health conditions too. So in this section, the researchers focus on the role of dopamine in regulating sleep and wakefulness. And early microdialysis studies in rats actually demonstrated that extracellular level of dopamine is higher during the active phase or dark period than during the resting phase or light period in areas with dopaminergic terminals such as striatum and the prefrontal cortex, and also reported that extracellular levels of dopamine in the NAC are significantly higher during wakefulness than during slow wave sleep. Alright, so for adenosine is known to promote sleep and acting in the basal forebrain, and it is a key mediator of sleep homeostasis. Extracellular adenosine concentrations increase during wakefulness, especially during prolonged wakefulness, and lead to increased sleep pressure and subsequent rebound sleep. Like for example, um, adenosine also builds up in the bloodstream. It interacts with specific cell receptors and inhibiting neural activity and causing drowsiness. So what does this actually mean? Uh, when our body runs out of fuel in the form of easily digestible sugars from the food we eat, adenosine signals the body to become drowsy. Alright, so let's go to the glutamate. So the NAC or nucleus accumbens has been described to mediate reward related behavior by integrating information from cortical and other brain areas. The highest concentrations of glutamate are found in synaptic vesicles in nerve terminals from where it can be released by exocytosis, where in fact, glutamate is the major excitatory neurotransmitter in the mammalian central nervous system. If we say mammalian central nervous system, these are the amygdala, the lobes, thalamus, hippocampus, hypothalamus, and so on so far. It took, however, a long time to realize that the present review provides a brief historical description and gives a short overview of glutamate as a transmitter in the healthy brain, and also comments on the so-called glutamine cycle. So the glutamate transporters responsible for the glutamate removal are described in some detail. So for the conclusion, alright, so for the conclusion, this review summarizes growing evidence of the control of sleep and wakefulness by the mesolimbic pathway comprising the VTA and NAC, and how this control of sleep physiology might be regulated by upstream neurotransmitters and neuromodulators. As the mesolimbic pathway is implicated in motivational and cognitive behaviors, changes in vigilant states are likely associated with the motivational and cognitive responses in animals. So, alright. Before I end this video, I just want to say that thank you for listening, and I hope you get some information from my presentation. Thank you so much.